Hey guys, welcome back. So recently a few of you have brought to my attention that we did not cover Web of Carnage after finishing Carnage Volume 3. And for some reason I thought we did, but we didn't. So we're gonna double back and knock this one out real quick. Because going into Death of the Venomverse, at this point Carnage has reached the end of Cletus Cassidy's plans, which from here going forward, it's causing him to have to improvise. But also with him still carrying Detective Shade as his host, Carnage needs to make the decision of whether or not Shade's gonna make the cut. So with that said, let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so for Web of Carnage, this slots in just after Carnage Reigns and before Extreme Venomverse, giving us what should have been a final issue 15 for Carnage Volume 3, because otherwise if you just read issues 1 through 14, you're gonna feel like there's a gap between Carnage Volume 3 and Extreme Venomverse without reading Web of Carnage. Because this one carries some major plot points. Because during Carnage Volume 3, throughout that whole series, we saw the Carnage symbiote take Detective Jonathan Shade through quite the adventure. But with that series closing with Carnage Reigns and switching over to Cletus Cassidy, it never wrapped up the story of what happened between the Carnage symbiote and Detective Shade. And that's what we see here in Web of Carnage. Because picking up from issue 13, where we saw the Carnage symbiote going through Detective Shade's mind and his memories to decide if he was a suitable host, we get this moment where Shade describes this experience, saying it's much like the time when he almost drowned as a kid, running through the wetlands just after the summer rain, with the terror of being dragged underneath while scanning the horizon for the hope of some kind of miracle. And right now, Shade is telling Carnage things like he doesn't deserve this, and that he's a good man, he's still a good man, and Carnage is just like, and yet you still ended up as my host. And sure, a good man, mauled by Carnage, because the way the Carnage symbiote sees it, the two of them are different, with Shade being full of regret for all the paths that he could have taken, the choices he could have made, but the both of them are the same in the sense of the two of them making a leap into the unknown. So Carnage just straight up tells him, I have run out of Cletus's plan to follow, and from here the choices I make are my own, our own. As Carnage then goes through some of John's more recent memories, like from issue 4 when he came across Spiderling, the pattern maker, who for quite some time has been trying to piece back together the web of life and destiny, and Carnage sees how at the time she helped John by sending him back to Carnage, and that now has Carnage thinking like, if Cletus's part in its journey is run out, then perhaps together with Shade they can find a new thread to follow. So from here Carnage takes Shade to the next universe, but as they go we're told, like a streak of blood, Carnage paints his path across the interdimensional skyway, driven by thoughts of unseen threads and greater plans. But entropy is not design. Decay is inevitable. No, all plans are made in defiance of this greater idea. Interventions made in desperate attempts to resist decay. Even now, Carnage finds himself being pulled away from his intended plans by one such unseen desperate hand, which now introduces the idea that Spiderling sent Shade back to the Carnage symbiote as a Hail Mary in an act of desperation, hoping that Shade could alter or hinder the next thread that the Carnage symbiote will be taking. And we'll have to wait and see how effective this may have been, cause next we head over to Earth 31 in an abandoned subway under New York, which as of recently has been the home of Morlun, who some of you guys may remember from either Spider-Verse or Spider-Geddon, with him being one of the inheritors, who were a family that fed off of the life force of spider totems, and these guys were ridiculously strong. But after the events of Spider-Geddon, Morlun was the last living inheritor, and more recently, in the end of the Spider-Verse event, he had his powers stripped away when he tried to feed on Silk, only for her to cut him with the totem dagger, which she thought would completely fix the web of life and destiny. So as a result, Silk cut him again, freeing every spider totem Morlun's ever consumed, millions of them, which just left him famished and stranded on Earth 31, with no other choice but to go into hiding, because the power that was once his birthright, though it's been taken from him, it's just out of his reach. And that pretty much summarizes why Morlun's here, who he is, and why he's powerless at the time, though he hasn't lost his appetite for spiders. But in the middle of his meal, Carnage shows up, And immediately Carnage tells John this is not where they're meant to be, only for John to tell him, "Welcome to my damn life," which is a statement that works a couple ways, both with John being the host and with them steering Carnage off course, causing the two of them to end up here. And as soon as they arrive, Morlun starts spitting bars, with him saying, "You did it too, didn't you? You followed a thread read from all who bled, and here you were led." And when he said that, I was like, man, so that's what he been doing down here, sharpening his craft, working on his penmanship. But no, seriously, he goes on to say, "Perhaps there's a tasty, scrumptious spider at the end of yours too," insinuating that much like himself, or like he was at one time, Carnage is also following a thread and chasing a spider. And though Carnage doesn't know who exactly he's talking to, he sniffs Morlun out and he tells him that he smells of death and violence of Carnage, which again, for Morlun, that wasn't too long ago. So he gives Carnage a bit of a rundown on who he was and how he got here, which essentially are the same events from End of the Spider-Verse we just talked about, but you can tell from Morlun right now as he recalls these events. At first he's having a bit of trouble remembering them, but as he continues, eventually they come back to him piece by piece. And for Carnage, with him hearing this, it's kind of funny because he's like, I feel like I've heard a different version of this story before. Almost like he's getting ready to ask, which Spider-Verse was this again? And for a moment, Carnage gets ready to leave with Shade, telling him that his broken mind has brought them far from where Carnage intended to go, because Carnage sees Morlun as too boring to even bother with. But just before they leave, Morlun tells Carnage that the web is never wrong. You followed a thread, didn't you? Is it not a spider you seek? A venomous one. Which right there catches his attention, and Morlun continues saying, yes, a powerful, tasty spider. You are looking for one, and the web led you to me. Perhaps life and destiny have an offer, a deal to make, which at first has Carnage like, what could you possibly have that I want? Like, what am I do, kill you and absorb poverty? But Morlun, he takes a moment to explain to Carnage the benefits of an inheritor, because when he had his power, he could stalk his prey, no matter how far they went. As an inheritor, he could hunt them down, across space and time. It's the inheritor's trait, because once you've touched your prey, you can feel their presence across dimensions, space, time. Nothing can keep you away. And while Morlun is saying this, we're given a glimpse at Meridius and the other Kings in Black from the Venom series, because when it's all said and done, Carnage is doing this to go after Eddie Brock. And if Carnage possessed the power of an inheritor, he could potentially chase down Eddie in Meridius' garden at the end of time. And as Morlun continues, we head over to another part of Earth 31, elsewhere in the city, same world, as he tells Carnage, the fools they were, who destroyed the web. Always, the web has been about balance, and if all the spiders scurrying in my veins were set free, then all that power, the traits of the inheritors, the web will find a way to bestow it upon someone, another hunter looking for spiders. And as it turns out, we find that Morlun's power now belongs to the Kraven of Earth 31. So him and Carnage make their way to them, and when they do, it catches the attention of the Venom of this world for a moment, allowing Kraven to get a headshot while Venom's distracted, peeling the symbiote away from his face, revealing his identity to be Cletus Cassidy. Earth 31 Cletus Cassidy is Venom, and it's pretty wild. But with Carnage and Morlun making their way here, Carnage sees this Cletus, and for a moment he's kind of like, I know that ain't who I think it is, not my Cletus, and he can tell how this Kraven the Hunter Spider is just toying with Venom. And Morlun goes on to explain how this Kraven, with him being a spider totem, possessing the power of an inheritor, it goes against the natural order of things. And then unexpectedly, Morlun tries to go for Carnage, with him believing that he's a spider totem, only to painfully realize that he's not. And he tells him, a totem is a primal force of life, but you are the absence of life, void of purpose or meaning, an avatar of pure carnage. Which is nearly the exact same thing we heard back in issue 6, when Carnage traveled to Niflheim and Rosfeld got a look at Carnage for who he is. So now we find that that hasn't changed, because for Carnage, that's his truth, and it's a truth that he wants to share with everyone else. So from here, Carnage jumps into the action, and right away, Venom tells him, you're like us, but not like us, and we despise trademark infringement, so you die. Cause Earth 31 Cletus Cassidy, he has a similar background to 616 Cletus Cassidy, from what it seems at least. But with Carnage cutting in, Kraven the Hunter Spider, he don't like that. So he jumps in, going after Carnage, only for Carnage to knock this man off the rooftop and into another building, But when this happens, we find that it was actually Detective Shade who made Carnage knock Kraven into the next building, because he then keeps Carnage from moving. So Carnage asks Shade, like, what are you doing? What was that? Why are you holding us here? As Shade tells him, because Kraven's not the reason I'm here. So Carnage tells him, you realize you can't control me. And Detective Shade's like, maybe not, but I can make your life difficult enough to convince you to be a team player. So Carnage is like, you know what? I'm not even gonna argue with you. If you want to fight monsters, you can do it yourself. As he then just drops Detective Shade, leaving him to go up against the Cletus Cassidy Venom by himself, which is just all sorts of messed up. But right after dropping Shade, Carnage goes for Kraven the Hunter Spider, who in this short period of time, he's created this little kill box for the Crimson symbiote to jump into, because he tries to stop Carnage with fire and with sound, only for Carnage to tell him that those don't bother him, because at this stage that Carnage has evolved to, it's true to an extent. Because next, when Kraven drops this grenade that's laced with a mixture of flames, sonics, explosives, and exotic herbs from Wakanda, Carnage feels all of that. But of course, once again, with the stage that Carnage has reached now, it's going to take a lot more than just that to stop him. And as Carnage pulls himself back together a lot faster than what Kraven expected, he tells Kraven that he's just a tool, nothing more like the Dwarven Spear Allblood or the power he took from the Spot and Hydro Man. And he goes on to tell Kraven, once I absorb your Inheritor's leeching ability, I will drain the life from this world's venom, then those of countless other universes. Then I'll return back to my own world and face Eddie Brock, the King in Black, take all he has before slaying him, and all will know that I am. And it's right here, after all that talking, when Morlun is like, mine, as he jumps on Kraven and takes back his abilities, which of course was his plan this whole time. But with Carnage seeing this, he tells Morlun that he might as well say my precious, and he tells him that he's pathetic, like an addict desperate for a taste, unable to function without it. And Carnage can't help but to thank Morlun for showing him what he never wants to become, because he thought with the life force of Venom within him, other symbiotes would follow and he'd be accepted. But now Carnage realizes that he doesn't want what Morlun has, because just now when he let Detective Shade go, that was a choice, and it was a choice that Carnage can make because of the power he's accumulated. But if he were to take the abilities of an inheritor, he would become dependent, weak, and that's something that Carnage never wants to be again. And he goes on to say, the other symbiotes will follow me because they'll see I am the strongest, that I deserve it, that I am far better than Eddie Brock, and if they don't, I'll just kill them all. And with the way that Carnage sees it now, he owes Morlun one. So he tells him, you know what, because you showed me that, I'm gonna let you leave with your little power, but the offer's only good for 11 seconds. And Morlun's like, fair enough, I owe you a debt as well, for helping me repair my addled mind and reclaim part of that which sustains me. You near the end of your journey to become your true self, while mine is just beginning. Pray that the multiverse is large enough to contain us both. Which, yeah, is not a good sign for spider totems. But after saying this, Morlun leaves. He just does what Carnage says, because he has a ways to go to get his strength up. And Kraven leaves as well, going back after Venom. And as he does, he wishes Carnage luck, one hunter to another. But back over with Detective Shade and Venom, Shade's knocked over a barrel of oil and he's got a lighter, but Kraven just jumps right back in, telling Shade that this is a battle he's been fighting for years, so if anyone's gonna end it, it's gonna be him. And it's kinda like, okay buddy, you could have been ended it, but you didn't. And I'll admit, it was nice to see Kraven the Hunter Spider again after End of the Spider-Verse. But now, before Carnage leaves, he opens an extra spot and he tells Shade, I brought you here, so I'll offer you a trip home, decide quickly. And Shade's surprised because he thought Carnage would at least want to see if this Venom wins or loses, lives or dies. But Carnage is just like, nope, I got bigger plans. Portal closes in 23 seconds, so Shade hops in and he makes his way home. Which now brings us to the end of Web of Carnage, with Detective Shade making his way back to Earth 616 and Carnage heading into Extreme Venomverse. But in the case of Detective Shade, with him going back to work, we're told that his experience with Carnage, it's not only given him a new appreciation for his job, because he sees this experience as a blessing instead of a curse, but it's also taught him in a way to embrace the darkness so that he can more or less use it while fighting crime and be a better hunter of his criminal prey, which is really great and all. But the last thing we see while he's beating the mess out of this mugger is a cut on his face, closing up in seconds, with what appears to be yet another trace of Carnage still in him. And I mean, it could be something, could be nothing. we'll just have to wait and see. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.